Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, the SpongeBob SquarePants, the movie. The movie starts out with the pirates looking for the SpongeBob tickets and going to the movie theater to watch his movie. And I find it really hilarious that these pirates are looking forward to watch the SpongeBob movie. And I just gotta say the SpongeBob theme they played and they sang for this movie is really great. It's really iconic. It's amazing, and the opening is just overall iconic, and it's a really good opening to for us the viewers to get excited as much as the pirates are for the SpongeBob movie.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob SquarePants. Absorbent and yellow and porous as sea. SpongeBob SquarePants. If nautical nonsense be something you wish. SpongeBob SquarePants. And drop on the deck and flop like a fish. SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants.
The scene then transitions into the Krusty Krab, where dozens of people are crowded around and people interviewing Mr. Krabs, like what happened. And it turns out that SpongeBob is manager coming in to save the day, as this customer did not get cheese on his Krabby Patty. And that's what he does. SpongeBob puts it on the cheese and saves the day initially as SpongeBob's fantasy, as this is later revealed to be a dream. And I love this sequence. It's pretty funny, but it also establishes what SpongeBob desires and what he's to to what to expect from today, as today is the grand opening for the Krusty Krab 2, and there's going to be a position for the manager role, and I love how it first establishes what's going to happen, what SpongeBob's main goal is, how excited he is, and then a sequence over to him getting ready, and that's a really fun montage of like him getting ready and all that stuff.
Bob, what are you doing in here?
I have to tell you something, Squidward.
Whatever it is, can't it wait until we get to work?
There's no shower at work.
What do you want?
I just wanted to say I'll be thanking you in my managerial acceptance speech today.
Get up!
While Squidward and SpongeBob are getting ready, Plankton plans for Plan Z, as this is his final plan to frame Mr. Krabs and get the secret formula. And as he gets ready to plan everything, SpongeBob gets rejected for not being the manager at the Krusty Krab 2. In which this is a fun, hilarious scene where he's just getting so excited, getting himself hyped up to be the manager, but it turns out to be Squidward, but he didn't realize that it was Squidward, so he just runs up there about to give his old speech, but Mr. Krabs stops him in time, and then he just repeats everything he says, and then he has to break down that to SpongeBob that he didn't get the job, and that he's too much of a kid, and he isn't responsible enough to be the manager for the Krusty Krab 2, in which SpongeBob walks away sadly. I really like the scene. It's really funny. I love how SpongeBob hype himself and then repeats himself after Mr. Krabs, but then it just turns like a 180, and it just kind of feel bad for SpongeBob, as you know he is the main character. We already established how much he desired to get that job, the managerial job, but now that everyone still sees him as a kid, and no one takes him that seriously, and then he just walks away, and it's just really sad and depressing. And also Patrick just flying in with his butt cheeks out is hilarious. Hilarious.
SpongeBob! Hooray for SpongeBob!
We are then introduced to King Neptune and his daughter Mindy, and through the scene we just are shown how malicious and unforgiving King Neptune is, and how sympathetic and nice Mindy is. And it's a good contrast between daughter and father. And we are then revealed that Plankton stole a crown, and then he escapes with it. And then we are then transitioned to Goofy Goobers, in which SpongeBob is crying and Patrick trying to make him feel better. And then this is like one of the most iconic parts of this movie is that when SpongeBob and Patrick all get drunk off of ice cream, asking like, "Waiter, more please," and they just can't stop and stop until they ruin the show on the stage and everything, and they just blacked out at the end. And that scene is very iconic, and yeah.
Mr. Waiter, 2 more, please.
Woo!
Waiter! Waiter!
King Neptune then visits Mr. Krabs, accusing him for stealing the crown and selling it off to Shell City. And Mr. Krabs defends himself, saying, "Oh, I'm not a bad crab. I didn't steal your crown. Why would I steal your crown?" And SpongeBob walks in hella drunk, and it basically tells Mr. Krabs that he's a great big jerk. And that scene is so funny, and I love how very expressive in the animation how SpongeBob is, and he's like, "Ooh, like, you know, being all pouty and stuff like that. Mr. Krabs is just standing there like, you know, face frozen, and because he didn't expect that from SpongeBob like at all. And you know, King Neptune almost fries Mr. Krabs, but however, SpongeBob like reboots to his normal self and defends him, and basically made a bargain with King Neptune, saying to give him like days to get the crown back to save the Krusty Krab and Mr. Krabs. And so King Neptune gives him 10 days. However, Patrick, being the dumbass he is, start reducing the days as he thinks SpongeBob is very competent. But however, now he has 6 days instead of 10, and which really fucks him over. But yeah. And then King Neptune leaves Mr. Krabs frozen. Mindy then gives SpongeBob and Patrick the bag of winds just to get back home once they get to Shell City. And then this is like a little funny part where Patrick has googly eyes over Mindy, and I love that he just has a crush on like freaking mermaids, and then is later expanded on in later episodes. Okay, so once they leave, SpongeBob and Patrick get ready and to go to Shell City, and they get on one of the most iconic vehicles of all time, the Paddy Wagon. And so they would drive off to Shell City. Plankton then steals the secret formula and basically starts selling Krabby Patties at the Chum Bucket. And for each purchase of the Krabby Patty, they get a free bucket. However, since everybody except for Squidward wears the bucket on their heads, they get controlled by Plankton and basically become their slaves. Once SpongeBob and Patrick get on the county line, they get their paddy wagon stolen. So SpongeBob and Patrick have to walk their way to Shell City and try to get the paddy wagon back. And so they found the paddy wagon in this little saloon place, in which Patrick tried to distract the bartenders and the customers and all like that, while SpongeBob tried to get the key. However, it doesn't work, as Patrick's, he didn't really distract them that much. He just asked to go to the bathroom, and then they went to the bathroom and they started playing with bubbles, which is really silly and a hilarious little montage of them playing with bubbles. However, they get caught, in which these guys in the little like bar saloon, they don't like little kiddie stuff, and so they try to root the people out who made the bubbles, in which they played the Goofy Goober theme song. And they try to weed them out and basically try to get people to crack under the pressure of the song, which is actually pretty creative and really funny interrogation. And I love how SpongeBob and Patrick struggle so much. They're like literally like flabbergasted and like melting, trying not to sing the Goofy Goober theme song. But luckily, these twin fish just had to say it. They just had to say the theme song, and then they get beat up, in which SpongeBob and Patrick escape with the key. We are then introduced to one of the villains in this movie, is Dennis, as he rides a bike and he really looks very intimidating, in which they rip the guy's fish's like lips off, which is really funny. and then he just drives off. And we are then transitioned to SpongeBob and Patrick talking about, mocking the dude, try to like weed them out from the saloon and everything like that, and how they're the ones who that created the bubble mess and everything like that, in which they also found that little ice cream parlor stop or whatever. But it turns out to be a monster, in which the monster chases them, in which they abandon the paddy wagon, in which the fish ate it. But however, there's like a bigger fish that ate that fish, and then life continues. And you get that iconic scene where SpongeBob and Patrick, especially Patrick's like faces, be like, and once they lost the paddy wagon, SpongeBob basically has like a moment of like, I wouldn't say clarity, but like a bit of a mental breakdown, as he like realizes like he's way over their heads of like trying to get this crown. The fact that they get their stuff stolen and they had to go to different scenarios and they get chased by a giant fish, and they're essentially saying they don't belong out here as they are basically kids. And Patrick tries to rebut SpongeBob, saying, "Oh, we are not kids." And basically, SpongeBob pulls down his pants down to show his Goofy Goober underwear, and how they worship Goofy Goober, and basically, they're kids and they should probably just go back home. However, Mindy stops them and saying, "You guys gotta keep going. You guys gotta go look for the crown," as Plankton took over Bikini Bottom, and in order to free, their friends and the whole town, they gotta get the crown back so King Neptune can actually do something for once. And except for him being a bad leader and focusing on his bald spot or whatever. So in order to get SpongeBob and Patrick's confidence up, Mindy places a little spell or like a bit of magic to get their manlyhood, but she only gave them like little mustaches, in which SpongeBob and Patrick immediately gained confidence again and went to get the crown, and basically fall to the abyss, in which they continue to go to Shell City. And through that journey, we have one of the most iconic songs from the SpongeBob franchise, and it's "Now That We're Men." And this little montage of the song and them traversing through the little abyss area it's awesome. It's amazing. It's iconic, and I love it. And I love how confident SpongeBob and Patrick are. They just went through each little trail one by one together, and with no issue or problem. And I love towards like the middle end of the song, the monsters like pick them up and they started ham boning for some reason, and they're just looking at them in their hand, and they call their little friends over, and it's like, "Yo, check this out, check these guys out." And I love that little moment. They called them over, and then they basically became their friends, and then helped them guide them to get to the other side of the path. And so that's all I gotta say about Now That We're Men moment in this movie. We are then, once Patrick and SpongeBob got to the other side, they met Dennis for the first time, which is a really bit confusing, in which like, how did he get there so quickly without SpongeBob and Patrick seeing him? I guess some other path he went through, but he basically threatens them and is about to like kill them basically, and he basically reveals that Plankton stole the crown and that he's the one who hired him, but in which he gets stomped on by the Cyclops, which is this little scuba diver guy, in which he steps on Dennis. However, he scoops up SpongeBob and Patrick and basically kidnaps them to be in his little gift shop. SpongeBob and Patrick are then awoken in the little fish tank they're in to be reserved alive. However, they soon realize that they're in a little shop where the other fish around them are dead, and basically they are being sold into like little knickknacks and like little gift shop like souvenirs or whatever, and they are then scooped up by the scuba diver and basically like put them on a low desk on a like heated lamp for them to basically die. And while SpongeBob and Patrick are dying, SpongeBob talks about how they didn't make the Shell City, and that people were right, that like he's a kid, they didn't make it, and that they couldn't do it. However, with Patrick's quick eye, he soon realizes that that they are in Shell City, and that Shell City is a gift shop for like fish and like to be sold off into like little knickknacks and everything like that. And then SpongeBob has that realizing moment. They're like, "Hey, we did do it. We did make it to Shell City, even though they are dying and it's not what they thought it would be." And so SpongeBob and Patrick both sing the Goofy Goober theme song together.
We did all right for a couple of goofballs. I'm a goofy goober, yeah. You're a goofy goober, yeah. We're all goofy goobers, yeah. Goofy, goofy, goober, goober.
And while they are singing, Patrick and SpongeBob both leave a little tear together in which they form into a little heart, and then they both die together on the desk. And that's a very emotional moment for me, because throughout their whole journey, they were, told that they're like incompetent and basically kids, that they can't do anything. They can't do any of these adult things, and they aren't brave enough, and they wouldn't survive out here to the journey to Shell City, but they did. And because it's like set up in the beginning how they didn't believe in SpongeBob, and now that we saw SpongeBob actually making it, but then he dies, it just becomes very emotional, and the payoff is just feels really rewarding. And that once that teardrop drops into the electrical outlet, it circuits the lamp, and it causes the building to the sprinklers to be on, and rehydrates all the fish, and SpongeBob and Patrick all escape together. Once SpongeBob and Patrick get out, they get the bag of wins. However, Patrick accidentally opens it, and now they're kind of stuck there. However, they get a help from, surprisingly, David Hasselhoff, which is just like a really funny and cool cameo from him. And then like that's like one of the most iconic parts of this movie is just David Hasselhoff's presence in this movie, and he's just like willing to offer SpongeBob and Patrick a ride back to Bikini Bottom, in which they do. And he basically, not like he gets a boat, but he's just the boat himself, and he just like hovers onto the ocean and to Bikini Bottom, which is like a really hilarious and fun gag. While riding David Hasselhoff, SpongeBob and Patrick must face Dennis one last time, and they basically, stall as much time as they can to Dennis not to get them. However, in one last ditch effort, David Hasselhoff not flies, my bad. He swims under a boat, in which Dennis gets hit by the boat, and yeah. And so King Neptune arrives at the Krusty Krab, ready to execute Mr. Krabs for stealing the crown, and Plankton just sitting there watching it to happen. However, SpongeBob and Patrick get there in time, in which David Hasselhoff uses his like pecs to launch them, which doesn't really make any sense, but it's just like whatever. This whole movie doesn't make any sense, but whatever, right? It's just good fun. It's just whatever logic, right? And so SpongeBob and Patrick arrive on time. They brought the crown back, and basically saves Mr. Krabs' life. However, Plankton has like a plan B or whatever, and puts the bucket over King Neptune's head and surrounds SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mindy all together in one circle to get brainwashed as well. However, in SpongeBob's like moment of clarity, he gives like a little speech. In this speech, SpongeBob basically talks about his experience of getting the crown, despite everyone doubting that he couldn't make it, he couldn't do it. And he basically accepts that, within himself, that he is a kid, and nothing will change that, and he will always be a kid. But that's okay. And, despite him being like immature and not being too responsible with things, he still made it. He still made it to the crown. He went through the saloon, he got chased by a fish, went through the abyss, and escaped Shell City, and rode the Hasselhoff, a feat that most fish wouldn't even try to do or can achieve. And it really, in this moment, it really solidified how SpongeBob's character, that, like, despite him being really goofy and silly, that he's still competent to do these life risking things and get the crown back. In which, through his inspirational speech, he basically is a Goofy Goober at heart, in which he breaks into song and sings the Goofy Goober Rock, and which is like one of the most iconic parts of this movie.
Can make me anything more than what I really am inside. A kid.
That's great. Now get back against the wall.
But that's okay!
What? What's going on?
'Cause I did what everyone said a kid couldn't do. I made it to Shell City, and I beat the Cyclops, and I rode the Hasselhoff, and I brought the crown back!
All right, we get the point.
So yeah, I'm a kid, and I'm also a goofball, and a wingnut, and a knucklehead McSpazatron!
What's going on here?
But most of all, I'm...
Hey, settle down.
I'm...
Take it easy.
I'm...
What the scallop?
I'm a Goofy Goober!
Goofy Goober Rock is one of the most iconic parts of this movie, and I just love the little, like, the song. The song is fucking amazing, and I love the little montages of, like, SpongeBob just dancing and singing. And one of the most iconic parts in this movie is just Patrick and his, like, fishnets and the boots, and, like, I think that's like one of the most iconic parts of this song is just Patrick just, like, doing the splits and just wearing those the boots and the fishnets. And within the song, SpongeBob becomes like a wizard or something, and then he basically frees everybody from Plankton's control, and then Plankton gets arrested, and through his bravery and heroism and, just being himself, SpongeBob earns the respect from everybody, including Mr. Krabs and King Neptune. Mr. Krabs gets unfrozen and basically gives the managerial role to SpongeBob. And I love, like, towards the end of the movie, Squidward basically tells SpongeBob, "Let me guess, you think you want the thing you wanted, but now you don't want it." But I love how SpongeBob says, like, no, I still want it. Also, your fly's down." And I just love that moment. A little moment when he just tells Squidward that, and there's like, that seems more realistic, because, like, that's all he wanted, and he earns it. And I love how this movie, takes its time to establish how everybody doesn't see SpongeBob as this, like, competent guy who can be the manager of the Krusty Krab 2, and how everybody basically sees him as a goofball and a kid and everything like that. And I love how in this movie it basically, despite him being, like, silly and everything like that, he still retains his personality through his journey, and the fact that he still got the crown really proves that SpongeBob can do it, and he can do the things that are responsible and bravery and stuff like that. There are so many things I want to say about the SpongeBob movie and why it's so great and so special to me. And one of the main aspects I want to talk about real quick is the animation and the soundtrack. Now, the animation is drastically, like, not too drastically, but, like, different enough to make it look exceptionally, like, amazing compared to, like, from the show, obviously because of the whole budget and everything. But I just love how, with the budget, they still managed to stylize the movements and the characters and the different, like, gags and jokes through it, and it just feels very iconic. Even though it's a bit more saturated with the colors, it's a bit more brighter, it's a bit with harsher and everything like that. And the animation still holds up today, as most of it's just like 2D animation, and one of the best aspects of this movie. And the soundtrack is very awesome, by the way, like Goofy Goober Rock and Now That We're Men and some other songs in there too. And every single song in there fits appropriately with the scenes and how they're, like, getting chased, or like when they're having those somber music tones and everything like that. And they still play, like, music from the original SpongeBob soundtrack, and I really like that, and it really fits the different themes and the different scenes in this movie. And let's get to the meat of the why I really like this movie and why this movie is so special to me. I also want to say the movie is very comedic and very funny, but it also balances out with the the dramatic elements, especially when SpongeBob breaks down saying like, "Oh, we can't do this. That we are just kids," and those moments of like vulnerability and like reflection between these characters. And I love how SpongeBob and Patrick talk among themselves, like saying, "Oh yeah, we're men, we're like tough enough to do this," but then they like later break down, saying, "Oh, maybe we can't do this," but we have like Mindy, and to help them out occasionally to bring their spirits back up. And I love those moments where even though most of this movie is very comedic heavy, it still managed to find that balance of like of drama and character growth and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the main aspects why I like SpongeBob so much, is because it balances, has good pace of comedy, or it doesn't spout humor all the time. Though I would say that most of the jokes landed. There's some jokes like whatever, but there's always like a a better one in the next one they hit you with. But and then once they hit you with the jokes, it's just kind of progress with the story, and that's like one of the main aspects I enjoyed about this movie as well. Now, my favorite, absolutely favorite part of this movie is the character development and the overall theme of this whole movie. As a lot of these animated movies often don't really have a theme. Some of them don't, but some of them do. And the main thing this movie is trying to convey is it's okay to be yourself, to be to be self-accepting of your personality. SpongeBob, throughout the show and this movie, we all know that he's very childlike. He has child aspects about him. He's like very immature. There's some things he'd be irresponsible with, and he's very gullible, naive, and all those things. And it really shows like throughout the beginning when Mr. Krabs gives the manager role to SpongeBob. I mean, not SpongeBob, to Squidward originally, my bad. And everybody, calls him like a wingnut and goofball and everything like that. Everybody in the town knows who SpongeBob is. But however, because of that, nobody, never takes him seriously, as he doesn't seem like the type to take responsibility to be the manager of the Krusty Krab 2. And I laugh throughout this whole movie, the journey SpongeBob goes through is that, despite everybody telling him to be a man, he's not man enough, he still retains that whole personality despite him pretending to be a man. But those influences himself still is like, it's still there. And I love how this movie, keeps telling the viewers that, it's okay for SpongeBob to be this way, and it's okay for you to be who you're supposed to be, and all that stuff. And especially towards the end of the scene when they arrive at Shell City, SpongeBob basically tells Patrick, like, yeah, maybe we are over our heads to thinking like we could get the crown and save Mr. Krabs and everything, but they did make it. And I love that where SpongeBob had that moment that they did make it to Shell City, and despite all that, the journey and how everybody told him that he couldn't do it, he did do it, even though he is dying. And I just love that moment where he realizes that he did do it, and then he sings the Goofy Goober theme song, and it just solidified how much SpongeBob has grown as a character. Despite him being like a good little goofball, he still matures to be a stronger character at the end of the movie. And I love how at the end when he gets to the Krusty Krab that he admits that he is a kid, and that's okay. And it really solidified me as an adult too, is that I'm okay who I am with right now. And there's still time for me to look within myself and try to be the best version of myself as possible. But what I am right now, I'm pretty happy with. And I love that message toward the kids in this movie. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people watching this film can get this idea of, self-acceptance and who they are. But if not, they still have that journey to go through to find who they are and stuff like that. The SpongeBob movie will always be in my heart, as this movie is like very special to me. As a grown adult today, a lot of people tend to underestimate me, and you may feel the same way too, as nobody really takes you that seriously, or you feel like you're not worthy or you're too childish. But it's okay. Despite me liking and still watching cartoons today, does not mean that you're immature or anything like that. It's just the stuff you like, and I love how this movie taught me to that the things I like and the things I do and the way I express myself isn't always immature. And the way I express myself is not how everybody else express myself, but this does not mean it's invalid or means any less. It's just the way how I express myself. And that's the same lesson SpongeBob has learned throughout this movie. It's that it's okay to be a kid, and he accepts it, and that, despite everyone telling him he's not manly enough, or like, he's not mature and often a goofball, he still, proves himself, and and everybody else in Bikini Bottom, that he can do it. He is responsible. He is mature. Despite his little goofy personality and everything like that. And so you can still be yourself and still do those things. And yeah, that's what makes the SpongeBob movie so special to me. And I'm sorry I'm so flabbergasted or whatever with my sentences. I'm just really bad at speaking. But anyways, yeah, that's one of the main reasons why the SpongeBob movie is so special to me and what has it taught me. And yeah, let me know what you think of this movie. Is it one of your favorites, or do you think this is the best SpongeBob movie like ever? And what you have learned from this movie as well. And I'll see you guys around.
Goodbye.